Well, I was interested in computer graphics because I come out of a background of math and science, and computers were becoming available as a tool to just study problems with. And I found that one of the problems people were studying was, how do you make pictures? And I became interested in that, and combined that with, always been interested in films, and films like 2001 and Star Wars that had these great optical effects. And I was always curious about how did they do that, and how do you make something look real that's not real. And just gradually started to see how you could put the two together. And there were films that were coming out that were starting to do that. There, of course, was Tron. ILM had done The Stained Glass Man in Young Sherlock Holmes. They'd done The Abyss. So, films like that, people were starting to use this. And I just became interested in studying fractals and natural phenomena, and that led into me getting a job just working on commercials and things, and then finally I got a chance to go to ILM and work on films. And so it just all kind of evolved from being interested in graphics and how do you create these pictures. I came to Weta in 2001 to work on The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and what really interested me was the chance to work on Gollum, because when I was at ILM, I got a chance to work on Jurassic Park, and we were looking at how do you make dinosaurs look realistic, and it was great to see them on film. The idea that, hey, we photographed dinosaurs, but then you start thinking about, well, can you do this with characters? Can you get something in there that is more part of, I don't want to say not part of the story because the dinosaurs were, but more part of the emotion of the story, not just being scary, So the idea of being able to create a character like Gollum was very interesting to me because I loved those books and I loved the scene with Gollum and the Hobbit. So that was just great to kind of get to work on that. And right after we finished those films, Peter wanted to go right back into doing King Kong, which he had put on hold previously. So we went and did King Kong, and then as soon as we finished that, Jim Cameron, came to us and said, with everything you're doing, do you guys think you can take a look at Avatar? Is that possible now? And I loved the script, and right after that, it was Planet of the Apes. We just kept going with a number of projects, and for me, the heart of it has been the characters that have been driving that. We have to make improvements all across the board. We have to know how to grow a jungle and make water and all these things that you have to do to create the film, but it's all centered around the story you're telling with these new characters.
Not ape.
One is we got to work with Andy Serkis a lot on these characters. So, working with someone who is a dedicated actor who understands inhabiting the role to the point where it can come out through whatever facade you put on it was really helpful, because you learn about what really makes a performance work. And that, coupled with trying to learn more about what makes something look realistic, how do muscles move, how does skin move, how does hair move, and cinematography, how do you photograph these things so that in the computer you're photographing the same ways you would with the real world. It's all the pieces you need to make a movie, but just applied to the digital world and built inside of a computer. And looking at just making all that come together so that you can tell a story.
So tell me, thief, how do you choose to die?
In trying to make things realistic, you start off by just trying to match the appearance, what makes a forest look like a forest. But I became interested more in, well, how does a real forest really get to become a real forest? And the answer is, well, it grows out of the ground. And so we tried to take that approach, how do you grow it from the ground? And we take that approach all the way across, and you just learn more as you go. For example, when we did Gollum, to make the muscles work, we did it like you would like an animatronic, where we put balloons in there, and every time he moved, we would just pump the balloons. They were digital balloons, but they just did what you did with an animatronic. When we started to do Avatar, though, realized that wasn't going to be enough, you know, because they were very athletic and you needed to see the muscles firing under the skin. So we actually had to learn about how muscles fire and build a whole muscle system and learn how to simulate the physics of muscles. So, you know, again, the story and the characters required to do that, but you just learn a little bit more about how to create them so that they are part of this world, you know, each time, and you just try to figure out what you don't know for the next time. Well, yeah, we've been building a real-time rendering system to allow us to see the virtual world and the virtual characters as we're capturing. And the goal is to make it as close as possible to, you know, what the final render is going to look like. So yes, we think they look very good and give you a good representation, but they're still a long way off from, you know, what the final image is going to look like. We've done some VR pieces based on content from films we've already worked on. We did a piece for Hobbit, we've done a piece for Jungle Book. Well, technically, if you're talking about AR or VR, they use pretty much all the same technologies that we use for visual effects. There's tracking, there's rendering, there's creating, you know, characters and environments. So that part is pretty well known to us. So those are really, you know, to me, interesting experiences. But for me, they grow out of the film experience. There's something that you do after you know what the film is. And that's the way I like it, because I still like the storytelling aspect of film. A camera has light of all spectral frequencies coming into it, but it filters them out and only combines RGB in the end, because that's all you need to reconstruct the image. But if that's all you use to generate the image, it turns out you're losing a lot of very rich color information. So we wrote a new renderer a few years ago called Manuka, and at its heart, it is a spectral renderer. It can do more than RGB, it can do all spectral frequencies. So when you render that and you make light sources that can actually emit all frequency spectrum and have that, you know, bounce and get absorbed through skin and hair and eyes, you get a complexity to the color that you can't get any other way. And that really is what we kind of opened up on this movie, especially for, you know, the richness of the fur. And it just gives a realism that looks more like real photography, because that's what happens with real photography.
It is my hope that out of this solemn occasion, a better world will emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past. A world founded upon faith and understanding. A world dedicated to the wish for freedom, tolerance, and justice.
You know, again, I really like the work that we do, but then you see what someone else is doing and it's a different story and it's a different context, and it's really nice to see it and just to, you know, see the worlds that they're creating, because we're all doing the same thing. We're trying to create these worlds that we enjoy. Once we know what the story is, we can focus on it, and we have a pretty good, you know, understanding of how to get there. But getting there is, it still takes a lot of work, and so that's why we wait to know what we have to do for the story, and then that's where we focus.
This be where all my dreams is beginning.